Dang, well, you guys killed it. Over 2,000 views on my last video. That's hype. I think it was the red arrows in the thumbnail. So, gotta be put more of that in there. I guess the clickbait does work. But essentially, thank you guys so much for sticking around. If you did from that video, I got a couple new subscribers, so that's awesome. We're gonna be jumping back in here to Bitcoin. Give you guys more of an updated kind of analysis of what I think is going on in the short term. So yeah, if you remember in my last video, I said we were probably gonna find resistance somewhere in this box, and we were gonna roll over for like ABC correction into this green box. And that's where we were gonna find the last bounce for the higher high, where we go to like 90K or whatever. So could this be the start of that ABC correction, right? Could this be 1, 3 down to the line, and then our bounce? Yeah, it's definitely possible. I do think, however, we're probably gonna go for a higher high before we do any sort of correction back down to the 65.5 level. Potentially just a sweep like that, and then we can have the ABC, something like that. The reason I say that is because if you jump over here to High Block Capital, thank you Kimba, this guy's like the best trader in the world. If you do trade crypto, that's your guy right there. He's live on like Twitch a lot, so that's pretty cool. But you can see High Block Capital over here on the far left. This shows you liquidity zones for Bitcoin, where everybody has their stops. There's a lot of it up to 75K. It's possible we leave that to grab later, right? And then what we'll do now is we will actually go down to the 65.5. So, it's pretty 50-50 right now, just based on liquidity zones. If we were to jump over here into trading light, let me get that pulled up. So trading light is something that can show us order flow, positions opening, closing, all that good stuff. If we look over here at CVD, cumulative volume delta, the more shorts that are opening, the more this goes down, longs up. As you can see, there's a lot of shorts being open right now, and they are in fact being open. These aren't just longs getting liquidated because open interest is going up. So open interest is the amount of positions opening, right? Green is positions opening, red is positions closing on the open interest, and then CVD is the direction of the positions opening or closing, right? So if you have a long closing, it would be red, as well as if you had a short opening, it would be red, because they're kind of the same thing. But what we can see here is that a lot of shorts are being opened into these sweep levels, right? And we haven't actually closed these shorts out. So that's why I'm saying my guess is potentially that Bitcoin actually does try for that higher high. So we can close all these shorts out of the market, not let them get away with being able to ride it to 65.5. If we do look at the amount of longs liquidated, it's pretty good. 93 on this 5-minute, 67 Bitcoin on that 5-minute. So, 200 Bitcoin on Binance that were liquidated. Over here on Bybit, we had around, 75, 80 Bitcoin that were liquidated during this sweep. Decent, right? You do see like 400, 500 Bitcoin being liquidated at points, so I wouldn't be surprised if. So I'm not saying it's impossible to not, go down and grab more longs, because I think there's still a lot of longs in the market that are open that, once we get down to that 65.5 level, that's when you're going to see bigger cascading liquidations that, market makers are going to love to take advantage of. And structurally, it does look kind of like it wants to roll over. So it really could go any way right now. I would not be, opening leverage positions right now. If you're already in one from the bottom, probably get your stops at entry. I know I'm going to probably put my stop at entry that I got on the Caspa. I got really lucky on that trade. I entered it like up here. Bitcoin swept all the way down, and I managed to stay in it because alts are more bullish, and that's something that I'm happy to report. Alts are definitely outperforming Bitcoin at the moment. So that altcoin season is just, it's getting ready to go ballistic. People are clearly rotating their Bitcoin over to alts. So real exciting times there. Let's get out of trading light here. Let's just go back into trading view. So just jumping over here to total 3 real quick. I know this was very high of like the entire range of the last bull and bear. If we jump over here to the 1 hour, you can see that we have back tested that again, right? Wicked right down to it. So the alts are looking really, really good. I don't know if they need to really sweep again. Even if Bitcoin were to do an ABC correction, I think it's very possible that alts just have higher highs throughout here, and then as soon as Bitcoin goes, it's just gonna go parabolic, which is what we all want to see. So yeah, personally, I don't know if this is your low yet, but it very well could be. What scares me is that liquidity down at 65, as well as if you see here, you can see the levels were identical, which could be valid. That happens sometimes where you get a low that's the exact same. Most of the times, I will say, when you get lows like this, it's sometimes a sign that you are gonna sweep it again. I will say these aren't really poor lows though, right? Every time I got to this level, these were quick. These were very quick wicks made by the market maker, right? This wasn't retail opening positions here, but retail probably put their stops behind these wicks. So, lots of liquidity here for them to grab. We'll see if they do in fact grab that. Again, very possible we swing up one more time. If I was a betting man, I'd probably say we swing for a higher high real quick. Then we sweep them back down, grab all those longs that are open, properly reset the open interest down into here, and then we're free to go up to 90K plus, 80K plus, and that would be when the top comes in, around that May time frame, like I was discussing in the last video. Alright, so jumping over here to this new chart, what is it? What is this? This is the United States interest rates from the Federal Reserve. And as we can see right now, it's flat. What does that mean? That means we are paused. If you don't know, people think that when we cut rates, it's bullish because money printer go burr, right? Well, that's not actually how it works. Usually the Fed cuts because there's a break in the economy, and they cut to try to save the economy, essentially. So when you see a cut, it usually marks a top. The market crashes, and then after the crash, that's when you probably see the Fed start printing money, and then our dollar gets devalued, and then next cycle might be actually very bullish for Bitcoin, not because of anything other than the U.S. dollar is on life support right now. So when could we see this happening, and how do I know this is true? Well, real simply, we'll look back at the last time the Fed went paused and then started cutting. Was right here in April of 2007. I think we all know what happened next, but when the Fed cut then, April 2007, if we go look at April 2007 on the charts, this is when the Fed cut. It was after you had this kind of cascading liquidation in the market, so I'm assuming this is when something broke. The Fed then cuts to try to solve this issue. You do see a rally in markets because retail at that point thinks it's very bullish, and there wasn't much historical price action to go on at this time. So the market still believed in the run. Eventually, what was wrong in the system got exposed, and you had a pretty deep recession because, of course, the housing markets and the fraudulent mortgage-backed securities, right? You might say, well, that didn't exactly mark the top. We still rallied for a while. That is true. But if we can look at our last top in December, right, January 1st, essentially, right, in the S&P, let's see if that's actually when the top for Bitcoin came in. So let's go ahead. We'll jump over back into the daily time frame. We can see the top actually came in November 9th. The top for Bitcoin usually comes before the S&P. This has happened multiple times in the past, not just this specific date. So I would expect this cycle is going to be no different. Bitcoin will probably start crashing before the S&P is topped. Just so we can get a grasp of this, that's when Bitcoin was topped versus where the S&P was topped was right there. So this time frame is 53 days. So even if the S&P is marching up for 50 days, Bitcoin could start correcting extremely harshly, just as it did here. So be cautious of that. Bitcoin is not perfectly correlated with traditional finance. And now that we have more historical data on that Fed cut, I think the S&P and the NASDAQ are probably going to be front running it a little bit more. I don't think they're going to wait till after the Fed cut to really fully distribute. I think it could happen faster this time. then in 2008. So as soon as we get around to the Fed cutting, maybe even a month before, uh, be very cautious, because that's usually when smart money is going to be selling. And if Bitcoin's going to front run traditional finance markets, then Bitcoin's going to be dumping even sooner. So to be safe, I would say we should be out of the markets on Bitcoin at least a month before the Fed cuts. So the big question is, when is the Fed going to start cutting, right? Well, let's jump over here into CME Group. They do the Fed predictions, and they're spot on, right? This is what markets predict, and the Fed will not want to go against market predictions. As we can see for this month, 99% paused. So nothing to worry about this month. I think that's all fine. Let's jump over here to May, which is when I think the top could potentially come in for Bitcoin. 91% chance that it's still paused. I think it'll still be paused, right? There is the chance, obviously it's like 525, 550. We're at 550 right now, so could they cut 25 basis points in May? That's something I definitely think could be possible. I wouldn't be too worried about a 25 basis point cut, and I don't think they'll start it off gradually like that. I think when they cut, it's going to be 50, 75, 100 basis points, and that's your sign that, hey, why are they cutting this much? Something's probably broken. But May doesn't look terrible. Let's jump over here into June, however, and we can see this is when the Fed cut is probably going to happen. So if the Fed's cutting in June, probably want to be out of the markets in May. So yeah, this is some really interesting data to take a look at, study why they affect the market so much and how this can be a great indicator as to when the market's topped. So yeah, let's be keeping our eye out for this. But yeah, that's going to be all for this video. Again, thank you guys so much for the support on that last one. But yeah, I will catch you guys all on the next one. Thank you so much for watching.